So would you agree that most of the white-collar jobs will be automated by AI in 18 months? So raise your hands if you agree. I see very few hands, so that's pretty optimistic. Okay, now, why I've asked this question? The reason I've asked this question, because a month ago, I have read an article in Financial Times, literally a month ago, from the CEO of Microsoft AI. His name is Mustafa Suleyman. And what he has predicted, that AI will replace almost most of the white-collar jobs in 12 to 18 months. Of course, he's selling AI. He's supposed to do that, right? Because if he's not going to do that, who is going to do this fear-mongering, as we call it, scare tactics? But recently, if you're watching the news, you've seen Claude, who is Anthropic, have made the similar forecast. Now, should we be scared or not? This is exactly what I'm going to explore by this talk, that how AI and human skills will work together to develop the skills of the supply chain folks in the age of AI. So this is what we're going to explore in the next 30 minutes. But I'm a researcher. I've got more than 100,000 followers on LinkedIn, so I thought I'm going to do a poll on LinkedIn. So when I did the poll, so results come in, it's very similar to this room, right? Because about 68% of the people think AI will not going to replace the white-collar jobs. And I think this is pretty much true. But having said that, AI will definitely going to influence hugely in our day-to-day operations. And how is it going to do this? So let's explore. But being a PhD in supply chain, I like to start everything from history. Give a reflection of where we were and from where we come from and where we're heading. So anybody who's been working in supply chain in 1960s and 80s, supply chain, the word even did not exist. They used to call it materials management. Then in 1980s, the word logistics was born, with some marketing and strategic planning. The word supply chain management was first used in the 2000 in one of the research articles, right, where they said supply chain management as a body of knowledge where we talk about integration, we're talking about B2B commerce. Then from 2010 to 2023, when internet was at its bloom, we have cloud computing. Then we were introduced with the technologies like RFID, mobile technology, and so on and so forth. So the digitalization was born. And since last 2 years, we got this whole hyper concept of AI in supply chain, or agentic AI, or large language model. So this journey has been going through for a long time, and each stage humans have adopted. But during their journey, we have created a body of knowledge, which call it supply chain competencies. So let's quickly have a look, what are they? So if you work in the traditional supply chain, to be good in supply chain, you have to know materials replenishment, order processing, inventory management, capacity planning, demand planning, continuous improvement, so on and so forth. So this is the essential skills a planner should have, or a supply chain planner would have. If you work in procurement, then the body of knowledge is even more expensive, right? Supply development, operational procurement, strategic procurement, category strategy, commodity strategy, supplier relationship, so on and so forth. If you work in logistics, then you have to be good in warehouse design, network design, contract management, 3PL management, WMS, TMS, so on and so forth. So what I'm trying to basically show here is, it's to be a good supply chain professional in this day and age, there's already a lot of topics to cover. And I have worked for Eaton about 12 years, and I was head of planning and logistics for Bridgestone about 5, and I have almost managed 800 people. And the interesting fact I found is that more than 60% of the people who were working in my organization actually did not come from a supply chain background. They did not even have any theoretical knowledge. If somebody good in Excel spreadsheet, you can become a planner. If you're good in negotiation or dealing with people, you can go into procurement, right? If you're good in following SOPs, let's move into logistics. And then over the period of time, they learn the skills and get better, learn these competencies. Now, so while they're learning all these competencies, the systems are also evolving, right? So if you look into 1960s and 1980s, everything was paper and manual. You used to place orders on the phone. Invoicing was paperwork. Bill of lading was paperwork. Pick note. Everything was paper, right? Then the ERP system will come in. SAP and Oracle. So they have taken the maturity from level 1 to level 2 of supply chain. That means everything within the organization is at least integrated within the organization, right? Then after 2010, we got the digital systems, IoT systems, real-time tracking. Of course, it was built on the ERP system, right? And now we're again talking about artificial intelligence. So the key message here is this: with each wave of technology, right, humans always have been involved. The tasks have been eliminated, right? So tasks have been eliminated, and we as a professionals have grown using the technology, right? So therefore, humans who have been adopting the technology have become more valuable, right? And AI wave I think is no different, but it's more intense, and I think it's more broad, right? I still remember in 2006 when it was my first job as a buyer, I have used fax machine to send the PO to a supplier to China, right? How many people have used fax machine? How many people are as old as me? Okay, less than 50 people, right? Okay, so you can see here, right? So more than 50% of people, you have not even seen the fax machine. So if I can survive a fax machine and do a talk on AI, so this is the classic example, you can see that, right? So this is what I'm going to show you, or send the message here, that the adoption of technology is just the next wave in the human progression, especially for the supply chain folks. Now, so before we talk about the new skills required in the age of AI, or how I actually call it workforce supply chain 2.0, let's look into the reality of what is happening with the current, let's call it workforce 1.0, right? And supply chain is getting more complex, right? Data is getting more complex, and we are literally expecting human to process like a machine capacity, and in all honesty, that's just not possible, right? No matter how smart we get. So what is the current reality? That the planning is still done on Excel, right? Doesn't matter how many people are setting demand planning software, it's still on Excel. We can't live without Excel. We're still firefighting, most of us, right? Fragmented data across ERP. Look at us. Lobster has created a great business just on this problem, right? Fragmented data is still a problem. Decision made are too late. And I want to emphasize this fact of a decision latency. And decision latency means decision made too late. For me, it's one of the biggest resistors in driving continuous improvement in supply chain. Because if you want to implement any ERP system, or we want to change the vendor, or we want to basically hire somebody, because the decision processes are too late, that the improvement get delayed, therefore ROI get delayed. I was just talking to one of the folks in Lobster just in the lunchtime, and that person said that the previous company he was working on was basically a EDI implementation. It took 6 weeks to decide the business case, and after that, they don't want to work with us. So it's a classic example of decision latency. So what is the new complexity? So new complexity is shorter product life cycle, because everyone wants to launch new product pretty soon. Innovation is getting bigger, faster, and the competition is high. Demand is volatile. We have pandemics, we have war right now in half of the world, which is creating so much news and chaos, which is in front of you, and it's been happening since January 2025, and it's going to happen unless few things will change. It's not going to get stopped. So we just need to get better and faster in dealing with this. There's a cold chain requirement, there's the regulatory pressure. So it used to be classically linked with the pharma industries or agro industries, but now the regulation is coming into aerospace, electrical, construction. So it's going to get more complex. Now, so what we have to do to basically develop workforce 2.0, right? So one of the most important things we have to know as a base structure, which is the supply chain competencies. So I showed you a few slides quickly. What are the supply chain competencies needed in procurement, logistics, supply chain, right? It needs to have that. That's the base. Then after that, you have to be good in people, because essentially supply chain is about people and relationship management. You have to be good in communication, you have to be good in leadership, presentation, so on and so forth. That's the second base. So pre-digital life, these two competencies will take you far, but not anymore. You have to have a third pillar to your skills, which is technology know-how. That means you have to understand the current technologies and what they do. So allow me to explain more. We got cloud computing, we got IoT, we got AI, automation, LLM, I can include 3D printing, I can even include blockchain, and so on and so forth. Each of those technologies have a very specific application in a specific part of supply chain. For example, blockchain is not famous. TradeLens was formed by Maersk and I think IBM, and they closed it. It wasn't actually not a bad project. It was not a bad idea. They spent, I think, $5 to $6 million, and they should shut it down. The thing was, they were too early, and there was some resistance to that, because from the tracking and the traceability of the document, right, blockchain is actually a pretty good technology, not just for cryptocurrency. So the point I'm making is following, that each technology have a very specific application in supply chain. So if you want to look into collaboration upstream or downstream, with suppliers or customers, cloud computing is probably a good thing to start. So what I'm requesting you all, most of the supply chain folks to be, is to be the star in the middle, meaning you got to get better in all these three areas. Now, so what should be the typical skill roadmap? We gone through the traditional skills of warehousing, negotiation, contract management, planning. What we need to do is to move towards the digital skills. That means we have to get better in data analysis and visualization. We have to get better in the AI model training. And this part, I think, is very important. Okay, I have a slide on this I'll show you later, but I don't think a lot of people understand what training of the model means, and I think all of us needs to get better in it, because we got LLMs like Gemini, ChatGPT, Claude, so on and so forth. They are trained on a certain data set. I'll show you more. But what we need to learn is how we can use those LLMs, which already train on certain data, link with our enterprise data, our enterprise knowledge, give our vertical context, give our customer insights, give our supply requirement insights. So when we give all this knowledge to the LLM, it's called RAG, means retrieval augmented generation. So once you create any application, could be a chatbot for your customer service, could be a planning tool, could be a tool to talk to your suppliers. Doesn't matter the use case. But it has to be trained in the context of the organization you're working with. That's what I mean by training of the models. Now, I will pick cybersecurity and cloud computing in one go. So one of the biggest resistance I've heard recently is, oh, we are not going to use public cloud. We have to use private cloud. And actually, I think it's a bad idea, because being on the public cloud is a good thing, because regardless what ERP or vendor you are using, if they're doing any innovation, they can push it through so you can adopt quickly. If you're on a private cloud, it's going to get slower and later. So the message of this slide is we got to get better in acquiring digital skills. Now, so what is the division of labor going forward? We should use AI as a partner, and we are the human leaders. So AI would do demand predictability. It will tell you when you are out of safety stock. It will tell you shortages. It will tell you your medicine is about to get expired, or your DOT of your tire is late. You should sell more. It will tell you most of the things real time. So you as a human would be applying your ethical oversight, your safety decisions. You will be managing suppliers. You will be managing governance. So what's going to happen is that automation manages the routine, and human manage the exceptions. It's a very interesting line, because when I was supply chain manager at Eaton 10 years ago, right, one of the things which I got a lot of praise from management, that I have implemented a lot of SOPs. I have implemented a lot of standard work. So it doesn't matter if you replace the people, the standard work will take care of the routine. So the humans was actually doing the routine work, and I was using ERP to run the exceptions. For example, planning exceptions means I have my MRP set up with a certain lead time of MOQ, etc. If there's an extra demand comes in, then MRP will tell me there's an exception, and I should basically create my work orders or purchase orders to meet the demand. So 10 years ago, humans was doing routine job, and the system was doing exception management. Now it's about to get changed from here on. Systems will be doing the routine jobs, and humans will be managing the exceptions. Okay, but there's a huge desire of digitalization, adopting AI solution. Everybody's talking about it. Since morning, we have seen some really nice content and discussion. But if I go and talk to my clients, in reality, especially the part where I do more business, like Middle East, right, and UK, there's not a lot of things going on, because the whole classic question of, oh, what is ROI? How are you going to measure the value creation of those digital initiatives? So I have a very simple theory here. What I think is that every supply chain digitalization project has to do two things. It has to improve customer experience, right? That means maybe instance pricing, maybe a chatbot giving them easy answer of their tracking, automated invoicing. So improve user experience. And it also has to improve the business operations, meaning reduce manual work, automated booking, anything which costs a lot of time and repetition. So ideally, if the business case is doing both of those things, that is improving customer experience and reducing internal inefficiencies, it will give you a good ROI. It has to do reduce the cost, improve customer satisfaction, and give you a greater profitability. So if the business case can show that, you'll get a thumbs up. It has to do at least one of them. If it's not doing neither, then you probably don't have a good business case. Now, so let's look into the agentic versus Gen AI versus agentic AI and how it will influence the workload. Now, before we do that, let's look into the human skills required, right? What are the human skills that AI cannot replace, right? The first one is critical thinking. In fact, there is an argument in the industry that AI is killing critical thinking. So how many people, again, would agree that AI is reducing critical thinking? Raise your hands. Okay, right. So there's about 40, 50 people think AI reducing critical thinking. My thesis is slightly different. I think the more I'm using AI, or I've seen people using it, so AI generates options, right? And as a human, we make judgment call. We used to say this thing that knowledge is power. But now, everybody have knowledge. You have all the knowledge what you need on your phone. You just need to open the ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, and you actually know everything you need to know. So the question is, if the knowledge has been, become a commodity, then who holds the power? I think the person or the individuals who are still going to continue to develop the critical thinking will hold the power. And a human, we cannot replace relationship, right? I won't be here talking to you guys if I have not built a relationship with the Lobster people. I can see there's a lot of relationship building going on as well. And I actually asked one of the question to one of my colleagues that, have you ever done business in the B2B environment without meeting or talking to somebody? The answer of that is no, because that relationship building is the basis of basically implementing AI or technology or anything. So that needs to happen as well. And most importantly, the ethics part. There is a risk, bias of human required and human accountability. One of the most recent examples of that is, I don't know if you've been watching news or not, is what's happening in the Department of War and Anthropic, right? So Anthropic was a supplier to Department of War. They want to use the AI to do some autonomous work, and the CEO of Claude said, no, you can't do, and then they have been actually segregated from Department of War. Because a founder of an AI company who has made one of the smartest LLM engines is actually saying, no, do not use AI in a certain use case. For me, that is a really good example. I'm not pro Anthropic or Cloud. I'm just giving an example of where the humans can stand and can say, these are the use cases, you should not be using AI. So that's the good example of the ethics. The second thing is the contextual intuition, right? And we use this word called hallucination, right, in LLM. So what does this hallucination mean? You can ask any question about supply chain, give me 7 steps of sourcing, or how I can run my sales and operations planning process, or how can I optimize my warehouse. Doesn't matter what LLM you use, it gives you an answer, and it looks like a good answer. But anybody who has been academic or know the right theory can easily see it's not technically correct answer. So the contextual information is missing, right? So therefore, you have to train the model to get better in the contextual intuition. And of course, the change leadership. We are the one who's going to drive the change leadership to make any technology happen. Now, so that covers the human part, but let's look into the difference between all these famous terms of artificial intelligence, which is a program which can reason, sense, and act. Machine learning is an algorithm which gets improved over the period of time, right? Deep learning is a subset of machine learning, which is a multi-layered neural network which train on a vast amount of data. So all the LLMs are essentially a deep learning models. Then we have the generative AI. Generative AI can create content, which could be create text, pictures, documents, so on and so forth. Hence the word generative, because generate stuff on a command or a prompt. So LLMs is the hybrid, is the mixture of deep learning and generative AI, because they are trained on a certain context to give you the answers based on the prompt. Therefore, they can generate stuff. Now, while this is happening, and I like Google Trend. I don't know if you use Google Trend or not. And I see what's happening in the marketplace. So I saw something interesting, and I thought I'd share with you guys. So if you see this graph, so supply chain is getting famous of the period of time, and I think we are looking here about last 10 years, right? So we're looking into last 10 years. So you can see the red line, nothing is happening with agentic AI until 2025, and suddenly it's going peak. But at the same time, supply chain is also seeing a peak, right? Can anybody guess what's the relationship between the two? Why supply chain is also getting famous with agentic AI? Any guesses?
RAM.
Say again?
RAM and computers and so on.
Exactly, right? Because what's actually happening, interestingly, is the supply chain is now becoming one of the hottest use case for the agentic AI implementation. Because a lot of things we do is manual, is time-consuming, is human-dependent, and this is where people think the supply, or actually they think rightly so, the supply chain is a great functional body of knowledge where you can apply artificial intelligence to drive results for the company, better value for the customers, better value for the companies. So this is very, I think, interesting for all of us from the research point of view. Now, so while we want to move towards AI, so there's a concept called human in the loop. So what does it mean? So AI will provide speed, right? And humans will provide accuracy and accountability, right? So AI will do, vast data in seconds. It will generate options, draft. It will identify patterns which a human can miss. It can automate tasks. It will be available for 24/7. So what we will be doing? So we will be validating the ground reality. We're looking into overriding what is the context. We escalate if something needs to be escalated. We apply our ethical judgment. And of course, we build relationships. So this is what I mean by human in the loop. So autopilot still needs a pilot, and then who we are the pilot of this plane. So generative AI generative AI is like a brain, which is trained on the data. So it creates any information you need based on the prompt. So technically, it's reactive. So now what is agentic AI? Agentic AI is basically a planner, right? It can complete complex tasks. It is capable of sensing. It is capable of reasoning. It is capable of acting. It is capable of adopting. But all the agentic AI, anything which needs a brain. And the brain is actually LLM, depending on the use case. So a bit sorry for this complicated, busy slide, but let me tell you why. It's for my training program. Let me tell you why it's busy. So what you see on the left side, you see most of the famous models available. So you got ChatGPT, which is by OpenAI. We got DeepSeek, the Chinese people who develop. We got Gemini by Google. We got Grok by xAI. We got Cloud, which is my recent favorite, by Anthropic. Perplexity, and we got Copilot. I'm sure all of you are using one of them, if not some of them. But do a test today, right? Pick a prompt, same prompt, right? Take any prompt you like, and go and use at least 4 of them. And what you will see is the answers will be not just a bit different, it will be drastically different. The reason it will be drastically different, because the data they have used to train to. So information or the concept what I'm trying to develop here with you right now is to understand that each of those LLMs are trained on a different data set to give you a different output of the same prompt or the same information you're looking. So for example, ChatGPT predominantly is trained on Reddit data, right? So Sam Altman was actually one of the, I think he was in the board of Reddit, so he can twist their arms and give a data to train the model. DeepSeek actually gone really next level. They're using artificial data to train their models. The best one for me is Gemini, because Google got the 2 biggest websites in the world. They got Google search engine, and they got YouTube. YouTube have everything. So their models are getting better with time because of this. My recent favorite is actually Claude. I don't know what they're doing it, because they're actually LLMs up. For me, is the most smart ones. And then we got Grok, which is trained on tweets, right? So each of these models have their strength, and each of these models have their weaknesses. So before you go and start using any LLM for your business with the agentic AI, so LLM is a brain, agentic AI who do stuff, can think and reason, you have to decide which one is better. Now, by default, most of the organizations are on Azure or Microsoft Cloud, and your organization gonna force you to use Copilot. In my experience, nothing against Microsoft people, is probably the lamest LLM in the marketplace. I'm really sorry. It is. To the extent that Satya Nadella, who's the CEO of Microsoft, have said, now we're going to use Claude Sonnet 4.6 as one of the LLM models to drive Copilot, because he knew he can't improve it through ChatGPT. Okay? So that's the message of the slide. Now, so some examples of the real-world automation, just to motivation purposes, rather than just talking theory, which I have done myself. Right, so before we do that, so let's understand there's 3 kinds of people in supply chain and AI right now. Let's maybe decide, and you can agree with me or not. So first are avoiders. They're just waiting it out, right? If they're waiting it out and they're not doing anything, not even learning, they are at the highest risk of replacement. Then there's some of the people, which I think about 60%, they're observers. They're watching others, right? They're falling behind. They know it's coming, it's going to happen, but they fear of obsolescence, and they're hanging on to what they've got. So they're not really pulling the information to go to the next step and becomes adopters, right? So the people who adopt the technologies, doing the self-learning, are forefront. So everything what I've told you about AI, or a little bit I know, I've learned through either doing Gemini courses, Claude courses, and YouTube videos, and few books. So I'm self-learning myself to get ahead of everybody else. So which category are you or your colleagues? I'll let you decide, but this is how I see people in supply chain. Now, so how you can start? You can start, I think your business is using some kind of cloud solution, which would be Azure, could be Google Cloud, AWS, whatever, doesn't matter. And there is a LLMs in place, right? So your business would have a cloud, and they would also have a typical LLM model. Let's call it our lame Copilot, worst case scenario. But you could be allowed to use ChatGPT as well, you could be allowed to use Gemini. If that is the case, then you can take any use case right now. You can maybe pick RFP, RFQ, maybe documentation, maybe replenishment model. You decide what use case, and you can use automation tools like make.com or n8n. And if your business is forcing you to use Microsoft, you can even use Microsoft Power Tool, which have the no-code power automation. So the point is you can use these three circles available to your business, and you can use any use case to build it. So what I did about 2 years ago, my first use case, was this, just for experimentation purposes. So I used Google Vision. I combined that with the make.com. I used Gemini. So I draw something with the hand, and I uploaded it, and just to create this chart. It was my first experiment. Now, to go on further, I'll tell you more about my company, but we are SCM is one of the biggest supply chain training company available. So I've got 80 courses. I have done 700 YouTube videos, 400 blogs. I've got too much content available for supply chain. And what we have done, we are creating an AI supply chain consultant. So we are using both Claude and Gemini, and train the LLMs using our content. So when you ask any questions, it will give you a really good answer with less than 1% hallucination. You can generate any draft for your business, what you want. It will do any diagnostics. And in fact, if you just drag and drop the Excel file, 6 agents will do most of the analysis. I'm not trying to sell you. I'm just trying to say it's been built. You can go and have a look if you want. Now, further move, one more example of the use case. I cannot mention the customer because the consultancy project I did, one of the USA healthcare companies. So what we did the demand prediction using machine learning modules. We have optimized inventory and the stockouts, because AI or agent will tell you that about to get expire, or you have to shift that inventory because the date is about to expire. We have to monitor any supply risk, and we automated where possible to get alerts. So results, 87% reduction in the stockouts, 1,600 hours saved, 42% ROI. That only happened in 12 months. So it's possible if the focus is there. Now, so before I'm moving towards the end, and if I have to summarize the discussion so far, I would just summarize with this quote from Jensen Huang, who is a CEO of NVIDIA, the most valuable company in the world. And he's saying that you are not going to lose your job to an AI, but you are going to lose your job to someone who uses AI. And I think it's kind of true. So what's your next action plan? What you will do? So how you become AI ready in the world of supply chain? First skill you need to adopt is prompt engineering. Very important. Actually, there's a lot of content available. You can search that. The way you prompt for ChatGPT is different. The way you're going to prompt from Gemini is different. The way you're going to prompt to Claude, because the anatomy of prompt, the way they understand, is different. So learn how you're going to prompt by defining the role, defining the objectives, defining the limitations, defining the tone, and you will get a very different output. Become the data literacy should be there. You have to understand models, input, output. As I mentioned earlier, each model is different because they train different. You have to understand workflow design. Once you understand the workflow design, you can use the automation tools I mentioned to automate any current processes you have. And you have to learn the different LLM tools, agents you're using for your business, could be any. And of course, you have to continuously learn going forward. Now, so last slide from today is, so what should be your action plan? What is the takeaway for this discussion? Pick one tool, right, and start using it. Identify any repetitive task. Could be just replying emails, summarizing your messages, anything. Summarizing news, right? See if you can do that. Start from one learning habit, 20 minutes per week. In the book Blink, they call it 10,000 hours rule. So to become an expert, you just need to spend 10,000 hours. So start from 20. Maybe you can get there slowly. So remember, your human skills are your competitive moat, basically your competitive advantage. AI is your co-pilot, and the supply chain professionals of tomorrow is built today. So That's before I finish. So I'm a founder of SimDujo. We have the biggest supply chain training company. We do consultancy as well, especially on digitalization. I was fortunate enough to work with one of the biggest brands in supply chain. We have a YouTube channel called SimDujo as well. We got more than 100,000 subscribers. You can go and have a look as well. And with that, if you want to contact me, that's my email and phone number. And thank you very much for a great audience.